Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. U.S. officials say one of its destroyers pounded a radar site with cruise missiles and that it's in response to repeated attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea.
These attacks have got to stop. And we're talking about one of the most important international waterways in the world.
Well, it happened after the U.S. and U.K. hit dozens of targets on Friday in the initial wave of strikes against the militant group. The Houthis are now threatening to retaliate.
The American and British enemies bear full responsibility for their criminal aggression against our Yemeni people. It will not go unpunished or unanswered. The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target threatening sources and all hostile targets on land and sea in order to defend Yemen, its sovereignty and independence.
CNN's Oren Lieberman has the latest now from the Pentagon. Oren?
Victor and Amra, the U.S. carried out further strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen on Friday night local time, this time targeting radar facilities used by the Houthis. A much smaller set of strikes than what we saw one night previously, where the U.S. led a coalition of countries that targeted nearly 30 Houthi sites across the country with more than 150 precision-guided missiles. Those included radar sites, command and control nodes, as well as storage and launch facilities for anti-ship ballistic missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles, as well as drones. Those are the sorts of weapons the Houthis have used to target international shipping lanes in the Red Sea, one of the most critical international waterways in the world. Following that series of strikes, we saw, according to the Pentagon, the Houthis launch an anti-ship ballistic missile into the Gulf of Aden. It didn't hit anything, but following that strike, following that launch from the Houthis, the U.S. carried out this further strike, again targeting a radar facility, so a much smaller set and a much more specific set of strikes. It's unclear at this point if that was specifically in response to the ballistic missile fired, or if this was simply a follow-on to the previous evening's strike. A senior Pentagon official had said the U.S. was still conducting a battle damage assessment, so it's certainly possible the U.S. saw what it had been able to destroy and realized there was another target that needed to be hit or destroyed here. The U.S., again, trying to send with these other countries a message of deterrence to the Houthis and a warning. President Joe Biden saying on Friday that if the Houthi attacks on shipping continued, so too would the U.S. strikes on Houthi facilities. Still, the strikes have tried to be limited in scope, making it clear they're not going after all Houthi infrastructure, just their ability to target international shipping lanes. The question, could they conduct a sort of massive barrage like we saw them do earlier in the week? Senior Pentagon official says he believes, from what he has seen, that the Houthis would be unable to conduct a barrage of that magnitude based on the U.S. and coalition strikes. Victor and Amara?
All right, Oren, thanks so much. Joining us now is CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Colonel, good morning to you. I want to pick up where Oren left off there. How much do we know about how much these strikes have degraded the Houthis' capabilities to continue what they've been doing in the Red Sea?
Yeah, good morning, Victor. The basic answer to that is we don't have a complete picture of that, so we don't know whether or not we have an effective strike. We don't know whether there was any damage to the complete infrastructure that would handle the radars, the SAM sites, the surface-to-air missile sites that the Houthis have. We also don't know whether we got after their launch facilities for their drones or any of the attendant command and control elements for that. So the short answer is we don't have a complete picture yet. But I think they had enough of a complete picture to do this second strike, and that was what prompted the action overnight.
Yeah. Between these strikes, after the first but before the second, the Pentagon says that they were able to fire at least one anti-ship ballistic missile, although it missed its target in the Red Sea. I wonder your reaction to hearing that just hours after the first round, this is how they responded.
Yes, so I think the big thing here, Victor, is that the Houthis clearly had an ability, and what they were doing was they were showing that they could still strike at shipping in the Red Sea. The good news for us is that they didn't hit anything. The bad news is they still have the capability, and that's, I think, the real issue here. The capability is still in existence, and it's going to be a long time, I think, before that ability is completely eliminated.
The U.S. says that this is not an escalation. These strikes are actually to avoid escalation. From a purely militarily perspective, we'll talk about geopolitical with our national security analyst. But is this an escalation?
Well, from a purely tactical standpoint, if you're on the receiving end of something like this, you would probably consider it an escalation. If you're a Houthi and you're getting hit by these things, it's something that you would talk about that way. And we saw that from the Houthi spokesman that was part of Oren's piece. I think one of the key things to keep in mind, Victor, is that their perception is that this is an attack on us. Being them, this is an attack on their facilities, their infrastructure, their ability to do what they want to do, their ability to even control their government. And that's how they're seeing this. Whether we see it like that or not, of course, is a completely different issue. We don't see it that way. We see it as a very limited capability, very limited action against their ability to strike at commercial shipping and U.S. Navy shipping in that area.
So if the Houthis continue to target the commercial ships passing through the Red Sea, the U.S. they have said they will continue. The U.S. said that there will be a continued effort to deter that. What are the options moving forward for the U.S. and the U.K.?
Well, the options, between the U.S. and the U.K. and the other partners in this effort, I would say the options are basically this: do nothing, which would be unacceptable, or go ahead and continue strikes like this. The magnitude of the strikes may be more like what we saw overnight, where specific installations or one specific installation is targeted, but they are going to leave the options open on the U.S.-UK side to do other things, to have more strikes that are of a greater magnitude, that can actually take out a larger portion of what they have. And some targets may be restruck.